A man who had everything: wealth, success, and prestige walked into a small-town diner pretending to be broke. He expected pity, maybe rejection. Instead, he discovered his childhood friend, struggling to make ends meet, quietly paying for his meal without saying a word. What happened next was unbelievable. Michael Turner's mornings in New York City were a blur of polished shoes, tailored suits, and the constant hum of ambition. His penthouse overlooked the skyline, a reminder of how far he'd come from the rusted rooftops of his Ohio hometown. Yet, despite the luxury, Michael often found himself staring out the window, wondering if the people he left behind would still care for him if he had nothing. He was a man defined by numbers: stock prices, investment returns, quarterly reports. But beneath the surface, Michael carried a gnawing emptiness. His family hadn't seen him in nearly 10 years. Phone calls had grown infrequent, conversations shallow. He feared that his success had built walls instead of bridges. The late 2010s were a time of contrast. In New York, wealth seemed endless. But back in Ohio, factories had closed, jobs had vanished, and families leaned on one another to survive. Michael remembered the warmth of neighbors who shared food when times were tough, the way his mother always said, "Kindness is the only wealth that never runs out." That memory haunted him. Was kindness still alive in his family? Or had hardship hardened their hearts? Driven by curiosity and a quiet desperation, Michael devised a plan. He would return home, not as the millionaire they knew, but disguised as a man who had lost everything. He wanted to see if compassion and loyalty still lived in the hearts of those closest to him. Would they welcome him with open arms, or turn away when he had nothing to offer? The setting was his modest hometown: rusted factories, quiet diners, neighbors who still waved from their porches. Here, Michael would confront moments of vulnerability: a cousin struggling to pay rent, a childhood friend offering him a meal despite having little, and his own parents wrestling with disappointment yet showing unexpected warmth. Each act of kindness, whether small or profound, would ripple outward, touching not only Michael but the broader community. And as the narrative unfolded, tension would build. Michael would face rejection, suspicion, and moments of deep loneliness. Yet he would also witness generosity in places he least expected. By the end, his journey would transform him, reminding viewers that true wealth lies not in money, but in compassion, resilience, and the bonds of family and community. Before we continue with this incredible journey, I spent countless hours researching and crafting this story to bring you something truly meaningful. If stories like this touch your heart, and you want to see more acts of kindness that restore faith in humanity, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. It means the world to me and helps these important stories reach others who need to hear them. Now, let's see what happens next. Have you ever witnessed an act of kindness that completely changed your perspective? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to read it. Michael arrived back in Ohio with nothing but a worn backpack, faded jeans, and a story he had rehearsed countless times. He had lost his job, his savings, and his home. He wanted to see how his family and community would treat him when he had nothing to offer. His first stop was the old diner on Main Street, a place where he had spent countless afternoons as a teenager. The neon sign flickered, the booths were cracked, and the smell of coffee lingered in the air. Sitting at the counter was his childhood friend, Daniel, a man who had once dreamed of becoming a musician but now worked double shifts at the factory to support his family. Michael slid onto a stool beside him, keeping his disguise intact. He ordered a simple meal, but when the waitress returned, she whispered that his card had been declined. Michael feigned embarrassment, fumbling through his pockets. Before he could speak, Daniel quietly handed the waitress a few crumpled bills. "Don't worry about it," Daniel said softly, avoiding eye contact. "Everyone falls on hard times." Michael froze. Here was a man who had so little, yet he gave without hesitation. That single act of kindness pierced through Michael's disguise. He realized That compassion wasn't about abundance, it was about sacrifice. Michael thanked Daniel, insisting he would pay him back someday. Daniel shrugged. "You don't owe me anything. Just promise me you'll keep going. That's all any of us can do." The words lingered. For the first time in years, Michael felt seen, not as a millionaire, not as a success story, but as a human being in need. Later that evening, Daniel invited Michael to his home. It was small, cluttered, and filled with the laughter of children. Despite their struggles, Daniel's family welcomed Michael with warmth. His wife offered him a plate of food, and his children asked him questions about where he had been. Michael sat at the table, humbled. He had expected suspicion, maybe even rejection. Instead, he found generosity in a place where resources were scarce. As the night wore on, Michael and Daniel reminisced about their childhood, playing baseball in empty lots, dreaming about futures that seemed so far away. Daniel admitted that life hadn't turned out the way he hoped, but he still believed in kindness. "Money comes and goes," Daniel said, "but people are what matter." Michael felt a pang of guilt. He had spent years chasing wealth, forgetting the simple truths that had once guided him. In that moment, he realized his test wasn't just about his family, it was about himself. Could he rediscover the values he had lost? What would you do if you discovered someone with incredible talent living in such difficult circumstances? Let me know your thoughts below. I read every comment. Over the next several days, Michael continued to live out his disguise. He stayed in a small, run-down motel on the edge of town, pretending he couldn't afford much more. Yet every morning, Daniel would stop by, offering him rides, meals, or simply companionship. Their bond deepened quickly. Michael began helping Daniel with odd jobs, fixing fences, carrying supplies, even babysitting his children when Daniel's wife had to work late. These small acts of service gave Michael a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. The community noticed. Some neighbors welcomed Michael, offering him leftover food or a kind word. Others were skeptical. Rumors spread. "Who is this man? Why is he back after so long? Can he be trusted?" The whispers stung, but Michael knew they were part of the test. One evening, Daniel's family invited Michael to a community potluck. The atmosphere was warm, but Michael overheard a cousin muttering, "He left us for the city. Now he comes crawling back. Don't waste your kindness on him." Michael felt the sting of rejection. Yet, as he sat down, another neighbor placed a plate of food in front of him and said, "Everyone deserves a second chance." That simple gesture reminded him that kindness often comes from unexpected places. Just as Michael began to feel accepted, a serious complication arose. Daniel's landlord announced he was raising the rent. Daniel's family, already struggling, faced eviction. Michael wanted desperately to help, but revealing his wealth would expose his disguise and ruin the test. The tension was unbearable. Should he step in and save them, or continue the experiment? Daniel confided in Michael late one night, "I don't know how much longer we can hold on, but I believe things will work out." "They always do." Michael wrestled with guilt. Here was a man who had given him food, shelter, and friendship, yet Michael sat on millions of dollars he pretended not to have. The obstacle tested both men. Daniel's faith in kindness was unwavering, but Michael's disguise made him question his own integrity. Could he continue the charade without betraying the very people who had shown him compassion? The days grew heavier. Michael saw Daniel's children packing boxes, preparing for the possibility of leaving their home. He watched Daniel's wife cry quietly at the kitchen table, and he felt the crushing weight of his deception. Yet even in their darkest moment, Daniel still offered Michael a place to stay. "If we lose the house, we'll figure it out together," he said. "Your family now." Those words broke Michael. He realized that kindness wasn't conditional, it was a choice, even in hardship. The looming eviction weighed heavily on Daniel's family. Michael, still in disguise, felt torn between maintaining his test and stepping in to help. He couldn't bear to watch the children suffer. One evening, Michael quietly approached the landlord. Without revealing his true identity, he negotiated to cover the rent anonymously. The landlord, suspicious but pragmatic, accepted. Daniel's family was spared from losing their home, though they never knew who had intervened. But Michael's actions didn't stop there. He began volunteering at the local food pantry, helping distribute meals to struggling families. He repaired broken fences for neighbors, carried groceries for the elderly, and offered encouragement to those who felt forgotten. Slowly, the community began to see him not as an outsider, but as someone who cared. The ripple effect was undeniable. Inspired by Michael's quiet service, others began stepping up. A neighbor donated extra produce from her garden. A retired teacher offered free tutoring for children. Acts of kindness multiplied, weaving a stronger fabric of support across the town. Michael's disguise had forced him to live humbly, but it also allowed him to rediscover the values he had lost. He realized that wealth wasn't about money, it was about compassion, resilience, and community. Finally, the moment came when Michael could no longer keep his secret. At a family gathering, he revealed the truth. He was still the millionaire they remembered, but he had returned disguised as poor to test whether kindness still lived in their hearts. The room fell silent. His parents looked at him with tears in their eyes. "We were disappointed when you left," his mother admitted, "but we never stopped loving you. Seeing you here, helping others, that's the son we raised." Daniel was stunned. "You mean all this time?" Michael nodded, explaining how he had watched Daniel's generosity despite his own struggles. "You reminded me what real wealth looks like," Michael said. The reunion was emotional, filled with laughter, tears, and forgiveness. Michael promised to use his resources to support the community not through handouts, but by creating opportunities. He invested in reopening a local factory, funding scholarships, and supporting small businesses. Months later, the town had transformed. Families had jobs again, children had hope, and the community thrived. Michael stood at the diner where it all began, watching Daniel's children play outside. This time, the roles were reversed. Daniel, now more secure, paid for another struggling neighbor's meal. Michael smiled, realizing the ripple effect of kindness had come full circle. The story closed with Michael's reflection. "I thought I was testing my family, but in truth, they tested me, and they showed me that kindness is the greatest wealth of all." This story shows how one act of kindness can change everything. What's one way you could make a difference in someone's life today? Challenge yourself and share your commitment in the comments. Months after Michael revealed his true identity, the town looked very different. The reopened factory provided steady jobs, scholarships gave young people hope, and small businesses flourished with his support. But more importantly, the spirit of kindness had taken root again. Daniel's family no longer worried about eviction. His children thrived in school, and his wife started a small catering business with Michael's seed funding. The diner on Main Street became a hub of community gatherings, where neighbors shared meals and stories. Michael himself found peace. He split his time between New York and Ohio, but his heart remained in the small town that had reminded him of life's true wealth. He no longer measured success by the size of his bank account, but by the strength of the bonds he rebuilt. Michael's journey reminds us of a powerful truth. Kindness is the greatest currency we can ever hold. It doesn't matter how much money we have, what titles we carry, or where we live. What matters is how we treat one another when times are hard. This story isn't just about one man rediscovering his roots. It's about all of us. It's about family, community, and the universal values of compassion and resilience. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to ripple outward and transform lives. Stories like this remind us that extraordinary kindness exists all around us. If this touched your heart, please like this video. It helps more people discover these inspiring stories. Subscribe for more tales of human kindness that will restore your faith in humanity. And most importantly, look for opportunities in your own life to be someone's unexpected blessing. What act of kindness will you perform this week? Share your commitment in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and remember, you have the power to change someone's entire world.